Welcome back to Legends in the Making. This is where we dismantle the lies, disrupt culture, and rebuild the standard. Today, we're going to talk about something that is destroying athletes, parents, and coaches for generation: the addiction to hype and motivation. We live in a world that tells you to chase energy, hype, and quick hits of motivation. But motivation collapses. It doesn't last. What sustains you when the crowd stops cheering? What carries you when no one's watching? That's what we're going to dive into today. And here's the truth. Heaven doesn't bless chaos. Order, discipline, structure are divine. Without them, hype fades into burnout. With them, legacies are built. Hype can get you started, but only structure sustains. So, when we think about why is this such a problem? We live in such a intense culture where it's like we have to have these bursts or surges of energy, and we're not grounded in the truth of who we are. So we need all this hype to ultimately give us a short-term reconnection to who we are. Think about how we get hyped up. But when you don't live in your truth, when you don't live in the essence of who you are, it becomes very challenging to sustain that. I had a powerful coaching session with somebody yesterday, and we were working on confidence. Confidence is their goal. And ultimately, I always ask the question, what does confidence mean to you? I think so often we think that there's just standard definitions for what words mean. But ultimately, I think the question becomes, what does confidence mean to you? And this individual replied that confidence was about becoming the best version of them and being comfortable being that version of them. And I thought, gosh, that is so powerful. And so when I think of what that individual was sharing with me, in that is this unwavering discipline to becoming the best version of themselves, and ultimately becoming radically honest and radically truthful with who you're being in any given moment, and asking yourself, am I living and being the best version of myself right now? And so ultimately, we need the hype, we need the motivation, we need the pep talks, because we can't sustain or stay in the knowing of who we are. Knowing who we are, being comfortable in who we are, that takes work. And the work that takes is the lifetime of being alive, of learning that. And so sports is just one vehicle and one avenue for us to learn who we are. Everything that's happening in our lives, whether it's on the sports field, in the boardrooms, in our homes, is to grow us, to have the highest and greatest impact that it could possibly have, to grow ourselves, to go, how do I become more evolved, to move to a place where I'm being the best version of myself and I'm not being reactionary. And I think that is so powerful. I think even as a parent, sometimes we use motivation, but when are we ever just the guide and holding space and asking questions of our children to go, is that the reflection of the version of you that you think is the best? And then I watch coaches trying to motivate or scream at kids. It's very interesting to watch the varying dynamics of what you see out there. And it's like, how is that helping? So you yelling, you screaming actually is a reflection of you. It actually isn't a reflection of the child. The child actually that's out playing the game doesn't need you yelling and screaming at them, because They know that they probably screwed up. They know that they missed a step. They know that they missed an assignment. They know that they missed something and they have something to correct. They're already well aware of that. Most of us are not born and move through life oblivious to what is going on. We're all very aware, but oftentimes what I think that yelling and screaming from that coach is an internal reflection from them that they didn't prepare their athlete. So their way of handling it is, I'm going to scream at you because it's now your fault. But how people react is a reflection of them. It's not a reflection of you. And so when we think about like, what's the problem? Why should we be more focused on the long-term sustainability of who we are becoming, about looking at our character? Who did God design us to be? And am I in my integrity living that every single day? We can't be motivated. Motivation might last for 24 to 48 hours. That's what most research shows. So you have these little surges of energy, but how do you become on this sustainable track to becoming who you're supposed to be? 90% of resolutions or goals fail without a system. And they fail because why are you seeking that goal? Do we ever inquire of why are we seeking that? What's important about that? Why is it important that I make the high school varsity team? What is that going to teach me? What life lessons is that going to give me? Without a system, your life feels like an endless roller coaster of hypes and crashes. It's, up, today's good, today's down. How do you create sustainability to be in a place where you're always at your best? And life's going to throw stuff at you because that's how we're designed to learn. So then when you're in those moments, do you have the tools? Do you have the skills to be equipped for that? And parents think they're failing when in reality, you have placated to what culture has tried to teach you. We went from probably how my parents were raised, like very structured, very, we got used to get spankings. We used to have some form of, don't do that again. And now it's like, to the other extreme where we're coddling our kids. We think like giving them freedom and not having standards is love. Love is strong. Love is tough. Having expectations based in truth are godly. They're necessary to raise the next generation of kids to be the most impeccable leaders that we have. So when we're soft or undisciplined or giving them passes, we're not helping them at all. And then we're creating a culture of exhaustion where it's like, where do you even start? And I watch it with my own kids. I really try to think, okay, I'm doing a pretty good job. But then the universe mirrors back to me and shows me what a long way we have to go and what are all the influences that are going on within their lives that I have to take control of. It's like we become exhausted and we don't know where to start. And so then it's like, we're going to just start by hyping them up. We're going to just start with, okay, let's do this today. And then it's like it falls off because we're so tired. It's hard to maintain that. And so I want to bring this home with a real story from an athlete who wrote us for our Dear Legends segment. And it reads, Dear Legends, I've always been the most motivated guy in the room. I love the hype videos, the pregame speeches, the pump up energy. But the truth, when the lights go out, I crash. My grades slip, my relationship falls apart, and my faith feels shaky. I'm starting to wonder if I've built my entire life on hype. How do I find something that lasts? I signed all hype, no anchor. And so first and foremost, thank you for your vulnerability. I don't think we realize the strength of honesty, being honest with ourselves. Honesty within ourselves is a sign of high integrity, of being aware of that. Means you're wise, you are understanding there's a disalignment with who I am intended to be and how I'm acting. And ultimately, hype was never meant to sustain you. It's like gasoline on wet wood. It burns faster than it dies. Like that's all it's meant to charge you up. But how do we get charged up for life every moment of every day, all the time? And that's by knowing who we are, living who we are, and having systems, tools, and processes to be who we are. So we have an opportunity to really get anchored in the truth. Heaven doesn't bless chaos. Heaven is our ego. Heaven is the opposite of God. It's the opposite of light. There is no separate two powers here. There's either God or there's the absence of God. There's light or there's the absence of light, which would be darkness. But we don't have two opposing forces. We just have one. We either have it or we have the absence of it. And so chaos, undisciplined, honestly is ungodly. God is not undisciplined. God is order. God is structure. God created the universe that we live in. He's gifted us the most miraculous world to live in that's self-sustaining, infinitely abundant. And so when we're in chaos, when we're undisciplined, when we're unfocused, it's really hard to sustain that. And when you get grounded in the truth of who you are, and you can come up with ways of how you do that, whether that's I'm going to meditate every morning for 10 minutes before I get out to bed. Oftentimes just get connecting in. I just want to quiet my mind and invite in the natural intelligence of the universe to guide me today. I often ask myself, where would you have me go? What would you have me say? And to whom? I make no decisions alone today. I make all decisions through God. And that's from the Course in Miracles. And that's just what I pray on, meditate on, invite in, so that I can be grounded in the truth of who God wants me to be for the day. I'm here to be a vessel for Him to act as His servant for the highest and greatest good of humanity. That's what we all came here to be. This is a much bigger discussion, and so often we just focus on the smaller things, the hype, but it's not anchored in the truth. And then it's like, why do I feel like I'm riding the roller coaster? Because you're not anchoring ourselves back to our truth and doing the work to get to our truth. So if we think of Jesus, He didn't run on hype. He had rhythms and patterns of prayer, of solitude and surrender to step into every miracle. Every miracle is a shift in our perception back to the divine. We can be doing this continuously, but it requires devotion to God, devotion to you, and the understanding that you are an emanation of Source Himself, and that you are here to do His work through you. But in the Course in Miracles, it says the ego speaks first and the ego speaks loudest. How often are we serving our flesh? How often are we serving our own individual egoic needs over serving those of God? And that's the shift that we need to make so that we don't have to fuel hype, and that we can live a life that is devout and structured and godly and serving the rest of humanity. Do we really look at our role, even on a football team, even on a volleyball team, a softball team, is God's calling for us to serve other human beings? So if you're tired of chasing the highs, the lows, and are ready to build a system that lasts, DM me Blueprint. That's exactly why this was built. So we have to get to truth. truth is what's going to free us from the insanity that we see on the planet. We have to be anchored in how we ultimately come to know ourselves and then be the fullest expression of ourselves through love. And so we know that we have the blueprint, we have the guide in order to do this. Are we willing to surrender? Are we really willing to step in? Are we really willing to get radically self-honest with ourselves to reach that state in which we are supposed to be? So again, I just want to invite you in to getting off the roller coaster so that you can have a system that anchors you back into the truth of who you are, that gives you the tools, the resources, the coaching, the sustainability to step in to the habits that you need for your daily life. So I want you to come work with Blueprint. We are changing lives because we're not selling hype. We are building systems that turn hype into sustainability, where you don't need the hype tapes anymore. You're just in a state of constant motivation because you're connected into who you're supposed to be. So we know motivation fades, chaos destroys, and structure sustains. Your athlete, you as an individual, whomever is hearing this, as I send this out into the ethers, you don't need another hype video. You need a system to help you get anchored into the truth of who you are. So if you're ready to stop chasing the hype and start building unshakable systems to have a solid foundation to build your life on a rock, DM me the word blueprint or go to my website, bluechip.com. We would love to work with you. This isn't motivation. This is a movement, and we are here to make legends.